Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto Training Trip Harem Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. About 2 weeks had passed since Naruto's return from his training trip with Jiraiya. The whole thing with the council and the slight uproar it caused afterwards lasted for a few days. Naruto was announced as the Namikaze heir the next day, and while it did set a decent number of the villagers straight and made a few feel guilty for being so cruel to their savior's son, a large amount still hated Naruto. A mob of irate civilians did try to attack him 2 days after his meeting with the council, try being the key word. They were all now in Konoha General Hospital recovering from broken bones and in one case severe head trauma. After they were healthy enough to leave, they each had a nice little jail cell waiting for them, to which they didn't really mind at this point, better than being out in public where Naruto could find them again. It was a tense peace between him and the villagers, one that would not likely last if they let their ignorance get the better of their judgment. Tsunade, Shizune and Kakashi also set to work on their own little plans for our favorite blonde Hanyu. Shizune let Naruto's clan status as last heir and his ability to have more than one wife due to the Namikaze practicing polygamy leak out. Tsunade, since she knew that Temari was interested, contacted Gaara. The young Kazekage was very much for the idea and if need be would tender an arranged marriage proposal under the pretense of strengthening bonds between Sand and Leaf. Gaara never did much like Shikamaru due to the boy's laziness. Kakashi kept Naruto busy with some training and simple inter-village D and C rank missions since things were quiet. In the past Naruto would have complained a lot about doing such easy low-ranked missions, but during his training trip, in order to gain more travel money when missions from Tsunade were sparse, Naruto had to gain a number of non-shinobi skills due to Jiraiya's rich tastes and tendency to waste money on women and booze. As such Naruto learned carpentry, smithing, landscaping and construction. He used these as a form of physical training while his shadow clones covered things like chakra control, reading books and scrolls and jutsu training. In the end, due to the large mass of shadow clones Naruto could use, he ended up with roughly 400 years worth of training in just 4 years, since he made 100 clones per day when he wasn't training by himself. The inner village missions were quite simple given his amount of skills. Gardening had always been one of his hobbies, and the Yamanaka flower shop occasionally needed some extra help in the greenhouses, so Naruto was assigned or rather hired as a part-timer. Much to Ino's delight, cooking was another thing that Naruto had become good at, especially baking. So Yuki Haruno, knowing her daughter liked Naruto, often requested his assistance at Haruno Bakery. Tenten owned her own weapons smith and shop, left to her by her parents, and had asked Naruto to help her out every now and then since he was good with a forge. Hinata and Temari worked mostly at the Hokage Tower when not on missions or training, since Hinata was getting medical training along with Ino and Sakura, and Temari had paperwork and such to deal with due to her position as ambassador. Naruto had limited medical skills, so he occasionally sat in on Tsunade's and Shizune's lessons. He also helped Temari with her work on various trade agreements between Leaf and Sand, figuring it would be good practice should he ever achieve his dream. It turned out he was quite good with finding flaws in trade agreements and contracts. Naruto had no idea that Tsunade, Kakashi and Shizune had set up all these odd jobs or C.D. ranks just to get him closer to the girls. He never would either, due to being oblivious to the fact that it wasn't anything more than a simple assignment that he was lucky enough to be doing with friends. He did still get the occasional B or A rank though, so as to not raise his suspicions. Hence why he wasn't present in the village at the moment. He was on a B rank escort and delivery mission. He was to escort a rich nobleman back to wine country and deliver a large shipment scroll full of fine wines back to Konoha. Sure, it wasn't to high class, but the man was the target of several missing ninjas, so it would work and satisfy Naruto's need for a bit of excitement, more than he would have thought. Naruto had been walking back to Konoha at a leisurely pace. He had already sent the shipment ahead with one of his summoned toads, a large blue one named Gamataki. He had only just passed Fire Country's borders 3 hours ago when he was ambushed by a familiar face and a group of not-so-familiar faces. Mizuki had somehow escaped from prison and joined Sound, probably during the Sand Sound attack. It didn't help that the bastard had a level 2 cursed seal that made him look like some sort of demented weretiger, nor did it help that he could smell that the Oto Hunter ninja had weapons laced with a deadly poison called Demon's Bane. It was a supposedly holy herb that was made to kill demons, meaning he was in for a world of pain if he was hit. Naruto drew Ebony and Ivory from their sheaths and twirled them once before settling into a stance, Ebony's blade resting on his shoulder. Ah, a reunion party, just for me. You shouldn't have Mizuki Tem. Naruto smirked. The cursed seal-enhanced Mizuki glowered at Naruto, his glowing putrid yellow eyes narrowing as horribly tainted purple chakra surrounded him. Naruto knew what kind of chakra this was. It was amongst the worst there was. It was devil chakra. The cursed seals seemed to draw upon it as an energy source. He and Jiraiya had discovered that Orochimaru created the seal from the cells and chemicals within a man who had somehow been tainted and genetically altered by some sort of devil. The seal holds a good portion of the tainted devil chakra in it, and once it is placed it siphons and taints the holder's chakra and in turn their genetics, turning them into a part devil. Devil chakra was much like demon chakra. The only difference was that not all demonic chakra was tainted, and when it was it could be purified. Devil energy was evil incarnate, vile and sickening evil in its purest form. It cannot be purified. Also, whereas demons tended to be more bestial, devils were more humanoid in looks and natures, they also tended to try to subjugate demon kinds such as the Biju and dire beasts aka summons. Hence, demons and devils did not get along. Silence, you nine-tailed freak. Mizuki snarled. Finally, after nearly 5 years I can have my revenge. You will die, demon. He roared out the last part. Naruto shot the enraged man a rather deadpanned look. Says the baka that sold his soul to a devil. Naruto let out a yawn. Seriously though, it's the same old song and dance everywhere I go. You shall die, demon, or kill the demon brat. Come on, can't you morons think of something more original than that after all this time? Mizuki's clawed hands twitched as he snarled. How dare you, demon, it is because of you that my life has been ruined. It's all your fault. Naruto snorted. Cry me a fucking river. You betrayed Konoha. You screwed up and I kicked. You're ready for round 2 yet, dipshit, or do I have to start things off? They must be big. One of the sound ninja said in the background. Huh? What? His partner said. The size of that guy's brass balls. Who'd be stupid enough to challenge Mizuki Dono? The ninja shuddered. Mizuki let out a roar and flung 2 large Fuma shuriken at Naruto. Naruto dodged them easily, but the scent of the demon's bane on it was strong. If he were to get hit with one of these weapons, there was a good chance he might die from the poison. He'd have to hope his human side would be enough to protect him. Damn it. Maybe I shouldn't have screwed around with the bastard and just killed him instead. Naruto grumbled silently as the group of sound ninjas surrounded him, each armed with various weapons, all covered with the deadly poison. Mizuki-sama, remember we must bring Uzumaki back alive. Sasuke-sama wishes to deliver the final blow and obtain his Magankyo. One of the sound ninja near Mizuki said. Why am I not surprised? I wonder as Sasuke Tem even realizes that the only reason Itachi left him alive and screwed with his mind so much was so that he could steal his Magankyo when the time came and could gain Madara's damn immortality and perfected Sharingan. Pitiful if you think about it, the sad little Avenger is still nothing more than a pawn. Naruto thought sarcastically. Mizuki growled, grabbed the ninja's head and smashed it in his massive clawed hands. I don't care what the little brat wants. I will have my revenge. Mizuki then hurled the corpse at Naruto, who in turn cleaved it in 2. With the distraction set, Mizuki gave the signal and his troops all began throwing countless shuriken and kunai laced with the deadly poison on it at Naruto. Naruto grunted in pain as he felt numerous kunai and shuriken embed themselves into his flesh along with the acidic burning from the demon's bane poison. The effect was near instant, his healing factor slowed to a near halt, his demon chakra flow weakened and he could feel his body getting weaker. He had been hit by a lethal dose, but it seemed that his human genetics were slowing the effects, but not stopping them. His only hope was to finish this quickly and get the hell back to Tsunade and hope she can purge the toxin. Does it hurt, demon brat? Mizuki taunted. I've had worse. Naruto admitted. But not enough to save your sorry. Quote. Naruto let a feral grin cross his features. I've got to end this quick and without using too much of my demonic powers or I'll just speed up the toxin. Naruto thought as he shot towards a random sound ninja and cleaved him in two. 3 others behind him also fell in severed pieces from the force of the strike. Come on guys, this in no time to fall to pieces on me, really takes the fun out of it. Naruto taunted. The remaining 8 ninja, except Mizuki, lunged at Naruto at the same time. Naruto let out a growl and spun with his blades out, catching all of his attackers, though one did manage to impale Naruto's lower torso with a wakizashi. Blood and body parts flew in all directions as Naruto dropped back into his stance to face Mizuki, a lone head rolling over to rest at his foe's feet. Mizuki stomped on it, making it splatter across the ground. Sweat was beading on Naruto's forehead and his breathing was slightly labored due to the poison. He silently cursed himself for not being more observant. Had he really been paying attention with all his senses, the ambush would have failed. Whoever made up the bull about half-demons being all-powerful and omnipotent needed to have a kunai-enhanced explosive tag shoved up there. Hanyu are powerful and extremely difficult to kill unless you know what to do. Using a poison like Demon's Bane or venom from a creature like a manticore could be deadly to even Kyuubi. Thankfully both were rare, it was just his damn luck that a psycho like Mizuki happened to get some of the crap. Mizuki let out another enraged roar and flung several more Fuma Shuriken at Naruto. Naruto dodged 2 and smacked the other aside with his sword before darting at Mizuki. Mizuki, now lost to his madness as the cursed seal has taken out what little humanity he had left, blindly lunged at Naruto and began slashing with his claws recklessly. Naruto cursed. The damned cursed seal made the tem much faster and stronger, and he was at a bit of a handicap at the moment. Naruto did manage to dodge most of the blows, though he did get raked diagonally across the face once and his chest got cut up pretty good in the process. Mizuki, however, lost his left clawed hand due to a deft swipe of ivory. Mizuki let out a howl of pain and grabbed the bleeding stub. Naruto didn't hesitate. Ebony raised up and came down in a fast arc while Ivory's blade came from the other side. The strike ended with Naruto's arms crossing in front of him as Mizuki's corpse fell at his feet in 3 separate hunks of flesh and blood. Thankfully, during the fight several of the kunai and shuriken had fallen out. He opted to leave the sword in him to help stem the bleeding until he could get the toxin out of him. With another swipe of his sword he severed Mizuki's head and quickly placed it in an Anbu sealing scroll meant for such occasions. He'd collect the bounty later. Damn. Konoha is about 30 miles from here. If I try to element port I'll speed up the damn poison, but if I run, I might be able to make it in about 2 hours. Damn Mizuki tem. Naruto grunted and took off in a dead run towards Konoha. As skilled as he was, not even he could get out of every fight without a scratch. To think otherwise would be utter foolishness. It was true that he could defeat Jiraiya and that he was better than most Junin in Konoha, but even Jiraiya could still knock him around a bit. Hell, the only reason he did so well on the test they gave him was due to Kakashi, Guy and Kurenai severely underestimating him. 2.5 hours later, Naruto walked through the gates, not even bothering to stop to talk to the guards, who shot him concerned looks. His body was a mass of pain at the moment, the burning from the poison was steadily climbing, his healing factor had shut down completely and wouldn't restart until the poison was purged. He was leaving a small trail of blood as he walked and his strength was beginning to fail him. Granted, the ambush had caught him slightly off guard, but that still hadn't been any excuse for taking the damage he did, poison or not. Simple truth was he had made a slight lapse in judgment and it had cost him. Next time they wouldn't be so damn lucky. Naruto silently cursed. While he had discovered that the poison wouldn't kill him because he was still part human, it did weaken him substantially. Thankfully, the damnable herb was so rare that it was likely that they had used up most, if not all, of the poison made from it in the ambush. Ignoring the pain and glad once again for his unusual high tolerance for it, one of the few useful things gained from the damn villagers, he turned and walked the short distance to the hospital. As luck would have it, depending on how you looked at the situation, Sakura, Ino and Hinata were all working at the hospital that day. Though Ino and Hinata were there mainly for lessons, Sakura worked there part-time as an intern with Shizune as her boss. It was a pretty slow day for the girls, all things considered. Hinata and Ino had just finished learning the mystical palm jutsu from Shizune, and Sakura was on break, so the three decided to take a rest in the front lobby and drink some tea. Of course, the subject of their girl talk was a certain blonde-haired Namikaze. So imagine their horror when he walked through the doors with a wakizashi jutting out of his gut, several kunai and shurikens still stuck in him, and a small trail of blood droplets following him, not to mention the 4 scratches going diagonally across his face. Naruto. Ino yelped. What the hell happened to you? Hinata and Sakura whirled around, their eyes widening in shock. Hinata had to stifle a scream, and Sakura looked like she wanted to cry. She was always rather emotional. Naruto grunted. Sound ambush. Mizuki Tem must have joined them after he escaped. He had a level 2 cursed seal. Their weapons were laced with a deadly poison. It's halted my healing powers, so could one of you get Tsunade, or do you know the purging jutsu, Sakura? He asked. Sakura just nodded and then snapped to. This was no time to let her emotions get the better of her. Ino and Hinata rushed out of the room and came back a few seconds later with a stretcher bed, wheeling it over to him. Thanks. Naruto grunted and sat down on the bed as he began removing the kunai and shuriken. He nearly fell over when the girls began rushing him back to the ER. Shizune saw what was going on, blanched and followed hastily behind them. Once in the Ino and Hinata began removing the kunai and shuriken that were out of Naruto's reach. Sakura began cleaning his wounds and Shizune began running a diagnostic jutsu and winced. You've received what should be a lethal dose of Demon's Bane and some deadly nightshade poison. If you had been a full-blooded demon, you'd be dead. I doubt even Kyuubi could have lived from a dose that concentrated. Thankfully you're only half. Shizune said worriedly. Naruto shot her a slight glare. Don't you think you should be more quiet in mixed company? He said, a bit annoyed. So much for secrets. Naruto, we already know. Ino said from behind him. Naruto's eyes widened slightly as he stiffened. When and how? He asked. Not angrily but stern and slightly confused. Sakura looked him in the eye and touched the sword in his stomach. He gave a curt nod and she pulled it out with a gout of blood. The only indication of pain on his face was a twitch of his eyebrows and lips. Sakura then sighed as she began cleaning the wound. We've known since the first night you got back. We were worried about you, so we thought we'd come to talk to you. Well, I did, and the other girls followed me. Anyways, when we saw you talking to Kakashi, in your other form, we decided to listen and not interrupt. I'm sorry if you're mad, but we didn't mean any harm, we just want to help. She said. Naruto let out a sigh. Don't worry about it. I had planned on telling you all sooner or later anyways. It's not like I could really keep it a secret for too long anyways. Shizune began going through several hand seals, stopping on the boar seal. Medical arts, purification purge jutsu. She said, causing her hands to be covered in a dark green light. Now hold still, Naruto-kun, this will take a bit of time. Ino, Hinata and Sakura, could you 3 tend to his other wounds with mystical palm? The 3 girls answered in the affirmative and began going to work as Naruto shucked off his destroyed trench coat. Thankfully he had several others just like it. Naruto could feel the poison slowly get purged from his system. His healing factor began to kick back in after about 10 minutes and went to work flushing the deadly nightshade poison from his system. Shizune found it a bit difficult to flush out the Demon's Bane since it wasn't a poison to humans, To them it was a harmless herb. To someone like Naruto it worked like some of the special poisons developed by ninja to stop chakra usage and other abilities. It would weaken him, and as time passed, if left unchecked or uncured it could kill him, slowly. Sakura, give me a hand in purging this poison, there is more in his system than I thought. Shizune said, concentrating. Sakura nodded and performed the necessary jutsu. Hinata and Ino finished healing the wounds on his back and eased him to lie down. Naruto closed his eyes while the two girls ran the healing jutsu over his face to heal the cuts there, while Shizune and Sakura worked on purging the toxins. It was a bit lucky that he had bled a lot of the toxin out, and now that his healing factor had kicked back in they could use it to boost the purge. Naruto fell asleep during the treatment. To Shizune's surprise, some of the trace amounts of Demon's Bane left in his system had slightly altered his immune system. His healing factor, rather than completely flushing the toxin, began building immunity to it. Large doses would still weaken and harm him, but it was likely that they would no longer be lethal anymore, considering that his healing ability finished up for them and all traces of the toxin had vanished. It was also lucky that the rest of his wounds, including the ones on his face, had healed up without leaving any noticeable scars. Shizune gathered up the weapons that had been laced with the poison and placed them in cold storage, intent on creating an antidote for Demon's Bane. She also drew 4 vials of Naruto's blood to help with the testing. The 3 girls transported Naruto to a vacant room to rest. His system was still recovering from the toxin's effects, and it would take a day or so before he was back to full strength. Naruto woke as they placed him in a more comfortable bed. Thanks for the help, ladies. Naruto yawned a bit. I'm a bit ashamed I got caught off guard so easily. He was still sore and a bit tired from draining the poison, but he could feel his strength and powers returning to him steadily. By morning he'd be at his peak once again. Naruto sat up from his bed and prepared to get out of it. He had to go give his report and debriefing from Tsunade. And just where do you think you're going? Sakura asked, crossing her arms below her chest, causing her girls to raise a bit. Naruto swallowed and averted his attention elsewhere while Sakura smirked. Need to go make my report. Naruto said, turning his head only to get an eyeful of Ino, who, he just noticed, was wearing a low V-cut purple muscle shirt that also bared her midriff as well as showed a good amount of cleavage. What the hell? Okay. I'll just look the other direction and, crap. Naruto's sweat dropped, his eyebrow ticking a bit. Hinata, to cool herself off a bit from so much blushing, had removed her coat. This would have been fine normally, but she was wearing a skin-tight black tank top that showed off just how much she had really grown during Naruto's absence. What Naruto didn't realize was all 3 of the girls, even shy Hinata, were teasing him. Though Hinata was very embarrassed, there was no way in hell she was going to let the other 2 girls outdo her. She could blush and faint into unconsciousness later. Ino mimicked Sakura in crossing her arms, causing even more cleavage to come into view as she looked Naruto in the eye. You can make your report later after you have rested up. That toxin took a lot out of you, she said in a professional manner while leaning forward a bit and giving Naruto a better view. How the hell did I suddenly get into this mess? Naruto wondered. I'm fine, honest. And no, Naruto-kun, you need some rest. Hinata said shyly. Besides, I think you owe me or us an explanation. Sakura said, tapping her foot and putting on a stern look. Why didn't you tell me, us about the Kyuubi? We're your friends and we know you're not some kind of evil demon or something. Naruto sighed and shifted into his Hanyu form. It was more comfortable to actually let his tails and ears out, since if kept hidden for too long the tail began to cramp and the ears began to ache. His fangs grew longer, hands became clawed, round pupils became slit and his whisker marks turned darker and wider as his 6 tails swayed lazily behind him. His fox-like ears twitched when Hinata let out a quiet giggle. What the hell was that about? And you mean to tell me that this doesn't freak any of you out? Naruto asked, his eyebrow arched in disbelief. Well, it is a bit weird. Sakura said, tilting her head slightly. But I have to admit, the look suits you. Ino smirked and eyed him up with a rather smoldering gaze, causing Naruto to squirm slightly. She was looking at him like he used to look at ramen, it was freaking him out. I have to admit, the whole feral thing is kinda sexy. Ino winked. I think. It's cute. Hinata said shyly. What the hell is going on here? They are supposed to be terrified of me, not looking like they want to eat me alive, well. Ino looks like that. This makes no damn sense. None whatsoever. Naruto's mind screamed at him. Don't you ladies understand what I am? I'm no longer human, or at least not completely. Because of the seal, assimilating the fox Tem's power and his chakra, I became half demon, a Hanyu. The bastard is still sealed in me, but that's only until I finished absorbing his powers and abilities. Hell, I can even take on the form of a six-tailed fox. How the hell are you three not terrified of me? I'm going to be the next Kyuubi. Naruto ranted in confusion. Sakura shook her head. Do you plan on destroying the village then? She asked. What? Not a chance in hell. Naruto exclaimed, losing some of his composure. Where the hell did that come from? Naruto, we know all of what you and Kakashi talked about. We even talked to Tsunade-sama. She and Jiraiya-sama explained many things to us. You horrible childhood, the hatred you have to deal with and the responsibility of the power you now have. Ino said, being serious for once. We don't hate you, and Naruto-kun, we just want to help you, and, Hinata trailed off, blushing deeper. We want to show you that we care. Ino and I weren't the best of people to you when you were younger, and Kami knows I was a terrible friend and teammate, but like you, we grew up. We won't judge you just because you're different. Gaara is just like you and he's the Cage now, and look how he used to be before he met you. If he deserves a second chance and happiness, then you deserve it that much more. Sakura said with a small smile. Now Naruto had grown much smarter over the years and for the most part could control his emotions quite well unless under heavy stress. But right now his mind was riddled with confusion. He had been sure that the girls, Ino and Sakura especially, would freak out once they learned the truth. His confusion was quite obvious due to the fact it shone in his eyes. They are right, you know. Tsunade said, walking into the room with Shizune. I don't understand. Naruto frowned. If the villagers had Tsunade interrupted him. We are not those small-minded fools. Even they do not have the right to act as they do, since I know for a fact that you have never given them reason to. She let out a sigh. Don't you think it's time you let go of the past? I was able to let go of my past pains because of you, why can't you do the same for yourself? That's easier said than done. I have to relive those moments each night when I am asleep, the mobs trying to kill me, the assassination attempts, the beatings, it never ends. Then to top it off, the bastard fox as a last measure of revenge makes me dream about the night it attacked with me in its place. Naruto closed his eyes. The scary part is, sometimes I enjoy being the fox. I enjoy the destruction and the taste of blood. Hearing the screams sometimes even gives me a thrill, it's disgusting. He spat out the last part with a scowl. But you would never do any of those things. Shizune protested. No, I wouldn't. Naruto sighed. I know it's just the fur ball's last-ditch effort to try and corrupt me. To be honest, it's more annoying now than anything. It's why I don't fear genjutsu when cast on me. They don't really compare to those dreams or memories. Is there a reason you came here, Mom? Naruto asked, pushing his earlier confusion to the back of his mind. Yes, I wanted to check up on you and see if you were being nice to the girls and not trying to push them away with your insecurities. Tsunade smirked. Crap. Busted. Naruto groaned mentally. Okay, I get it. Not like I enjoy the whole angsty bit anyways. A few things then clicked into place and Naruto shot Tsunade a rather deadpanned look. You are trying to set me up, aren't you? And if I am? She asked. Naruto's sweat dropped. Does this have to do with my clan scroll? Well, it looks like you really did get smarter. Tsunade quipped. Why complain? The girls like you and it's not like you're being told to marry them or anything, I just want you to give them a chance. All three of them. Are you going senile? Sakura is in love with Sasuke Tem. Clunk. Naruto was cut off by a metal bedpan to the face from Tsunade. I'm not senile and you forgot about Tenten and Tamari, they seem to like you as well. Tsunade said, crossing her arms. But, she's right, Naruto, we aren't asking for anything big right now, just get to know us. Ino said with a grin. But, I would like T to be, Naruto-kun's, girlfriend. Hinata said shyly. Quote exclamation mark question mark quote. But, no buts, Naruto-kun, did you honestly think I wouldn't have gotten over Sasuke after all this time? Sakura added. Just give it a shot, get to know them, go on a few dates or something. They can help you get over your past, we all can, but you need to let us in. Shizune stated. Besides, you've been brooding for nearly 2 weeks now and brooding doesn't suit you. I was beginning to think you were going to turn into a Uchiha. Tsunade jabbed. That should do the trick. I haven't been that bad. Naruto trailed off at the 3 glares leveled at him from Tsunade, Shizune and Sakura. Okay. Maybe I have. Sorry. I've just had a lot on my mind. I'll stop brooding so much and mellow out a bit. Naruto then looked at the 3 girls. Now for your 3. I am very flattered and in Sakura-chan's case surprised, but I will need time to adjust to this and think it over. I would suggest you ladies do the same, don't let your hormones make decisions for you or make a hasty choice. You also need to consider your families. I'm pretty sure they won't like the idea that their little girls have suddenly gotten a crush on the village half-demon, they will probably think I did something to you. Just think on it for a while. I will do the same, but until then, let's just be friends. Naruto said. The 3 were a bit disappointed but nodded. When can I leave, Tsunade? Naruto asked. In the morning once you're back to full strength, otherwise I want you to rest, and no arguments. She answered. Alright, I'll take it easy. Naruto grumbled. I hate hospitals. Demons spawn. Die. Suffer as we have. Fox brat. Destroy. Kill them. Destroy them all. No. Feast upon their flesh. Drink of their blood. Savor the marrow of their bones. Bring about beautiful destruction. Kill. 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 Gut the little bastard before we get caught. Stop. Total annihilation is but one broken will away. You will complete what I once started. Ha 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 ha. Naruto's eyes shot open, a thin sheen of sweat covered his form, his breathing slightly labored. It was that dream again, the dream where he loses control and becomes a black Kyuubi. He could feel his muscles stiffen and relax as he calmed himself, the early morning sunlight filtering in through the window. Damn it. When will I be free of these damn dreams? They are really beginning to get on my nerves. To think the Baka Fox still thinks it can break my will. Oh well, in a few more years he will cease to exist and I will finally be able to wash my claws of the bastard. Naruto thought. Naruto then felt a slight stirring on his stomach. Huh? What's that? Looking down he saw a mop of bubble-gum pink hair resting on his stomach. Glancing over a bit he noticed that Sakura was half sitting on a chair, her upper half resting on him and her hand holding his own. He let out a small sigh. He must have been making noises in his sleep again. Jiraiya said he sometimes made noises during some of his worst nightmares. She must have heard him and tried to offer some comfort. A small smile crossed his lips. 4 years ago he would have sold his soul to be in this position. Even now he wasn't about to complain, but it was an odd feeling. He really didn't know what to make of the girls knowing his secret or the fact that not only Tsunade wanted him to date them but they seemed to want to try it out too. It's not like he was against the idea, only a damn fool would turn down a group of beautiful women and a fool he was not. It kind of weirded him out that none of them seemed to care that he was supposed to practice polygamy. Perhaps women just looked at things differently. Though he would have thought, given their strong personalities, that they would not be so willing to even consider the thought of sharing. Once again it must be how they perceived the situation. Though one thing was for sure, if he did agree to this, things would be taken slowly. He, himself, had to get used to the idea and, if he was honest with himself, he needed to learn how to open up more. He was aware that he always tried to shoulder all the burdens by himself. He had been since he was a child and was fairly used to it. But he recalled something Jiraiya had told him his father had once said. Even a hero needs heroes of their own, or the fires in their heart will flicker and burn out, and without that fire, love will fade with it, and then all that remains is emptiness. Jiraiya had also told him once that it was his love that was the source of his power and strength. Naruto had been confused at that since, while he had loved others, he had never really felt love. Could such an emotion truly boost his power like the old pervert had suggested? Was that emotion truly the reason he could become so strong? It never really crossed his mind that when the ones he loved were in danger and his body was broken and his power nearly gone, that was when he somehow could rise up, more powerful than ever before. He did it against Shukaku, Kabuto, and even Kyuubi when it tried to control him to harm his precious people. Naruto was powerful, that was certain. But within him lay a great potential fueled by an emotion. If he were to ever discover and harness that potential, then he would gain power that could even surpass the gods. All it would need is a trigger. Pushing back his jumbled thoughts, Naruto raised a clawed hand and gently pushed back a few pink locks from Sakura's face. He wasn't sure just why, but watching her like this seemed to ease his mind and give him a sense of inner peace. Sakura's eyes fluttered open. She had woken from a pleasant dream about her and a certain blonde fox boy and a gentle touch. She looked up and blushed. Naruto was looking at her with the most kind and gentle look she had ever seen on his features. His lips were slightly turned up in a smile. His eyes, though still piercing, seemed to radiate warmth and gentleness. They were even giving off a faint glow. She had come in to check on him last night and had found him in the middle of a nightmare. She had tried to wake him up, but she couldn't. He was whimpering slightly and occasionally letting out growls. He had been so tense and his body beaded with sweat. She felt so bad for him, so she tried to comfort him as best she could. When she grabbed his hand, he seemed to calm a little. Eventually she must have fallen asleep. "Good morning, Sakura-chan," Naruto said, his voice a bit softer than usual. "Morning, Naruto-kun," she replied a bit shyly and sat up with a small yawn. "Are you feeling better now?" Naruto nodded and frowned slightly. The sudden loss of warmth suddenly bothered him. And she was still using the kun suffix. That was going to take some getting used to. "I'm back to full strength, thanks to you and the others." "Thank you for the help," Naruto said with a slight bow to show his gratitude. Sakura smiled. "No problem, I'm just glad we could help." Naruto sat up and stretched a bit, his 6 tails stretching out behind him as he worked the kinks out of his bones. Sakura enjoyed the little show as he flexed his muscles and twitched his ears in a cute fox-like manner. How he managed to pull off sexy and cute at the same time she didn't know, but she wasn't about to complain a bit. "Tenten and Tamari stopped by last night while you were asleep and brought you some fresh clothes," Sakura said as Naruto stood. She blushed a bit. He was only in a pair of black boxers. "Why don't you go ahead and get cleaned up? I'll go get you some breakfast, anything you want in particular," she asked. "Some tea, a bowl of rice and an apple sounds nice if that's not too much of a hassle," Naruto responded. "None at all. You go ahead and shower, I'll be back in about 10 minutes," she said, her cheeks still twinged pink, and hurried out the door. "Wonder what's got her so worked up?" Naruto wondered and looked down. "Oh, I see. He was in nothing but his boxers, thankfully not suffering from morning wood, but the boxers were a bit on the snug side, so they did nothing to hide the sizable lump in front. It wasn't his fault that he was built a bit above average, for all he knew it ran in the family." Slightly embarrassed, he quickly dismissed his Hanyu form and went to shower. He'd apologize to Sakura later. What he didn't know was that said pink-haired medic ninja was on the other side of the door, hastily stuffing some tissue up her nose to stem off the nosebleed she had gotten. Once that was under control, she scurried off to get them both some breakfast. Naruto wiped his brow of sweat and settled back into his stance. He was currently in his favorite training spot in the woods behind the Hokage monument, a simple clearing with a small river and spring-fed lake in the center of the clearing. Around the small lake were various flowers, medicinal herbs and even a few berry bushes. At one side of the lake was a large sakura tree that he liked to take naps in when he could. It was his secret place where he could come to be one with nature and relax, though he was sure that someone else would one day find this place he would protect it, it was his haven. At the moment he was standing out in the middle of the lake going through various kata for his mystical beast-style kenjutsu. He had stopped because a blue bird had flown down and perched on his sword, looking at him innocently. He smiled and watched the little creature as it hopped up and down his blade. On the other side of the lake he could see a small family of deer drinking from the lake. There was even a small family of foxes here. None of the wildlife in the area had ever feared Naruto, and he had for years, even before he became a ninja, had acted as their protector from hunters and such. This haven was as much theirs as his. The blue bird, its curiosity satisfied, flew off to get some food near one of the berry bushes. Naruto continued to go through his kata as he manipulated the water and wind around him. Swirls, spirals and arcs of water danced about his shirtless form and blades, his 6 tails flailing behind him as the winds blew through his hair and fur. Naruto's eyes began giving off a brilliant icy blue glow as he channeled more of his power, creating pillars of water on the lake. He began jumping between them as he continued his kata. He was determined to make sure that no more accidents like the one he had with Mizuki would happen again. He had been careless and hadn't even tapped into a quarter of his power or skill. Though that was partially due to the power-draining anti-demon poison he had been inflicted with, but the point was that he was more than skilled enough that it shouldn't have happened. He had been berating himself for nearly a week now. Of course, just because Naruto thought he was alone didn't mean he really was. The show was being enjoyed by quite a few people. Tsunade, Shizune, Sakura, Ino and Kakashi were watching from the Hokage's office via the viewing crystal. Hinata, who had perfected stalking Naruto to an art, was also watching from the tree line along with Tenten, both in different positions and using a much better form of concealment jutsu. Tamari had returned to Suna several days ago for her tri-monthly reports. With an expert twirl, Naruto sheathed his twin swords and then began going through taijutsu kata. Further channeling his control of water and wind, he turned the pillars of water into a large sphere and used the wind to hold it in place. He then trained his ability to fight underwater and use his affinity to breathe the water. He then tied on a blindfold intent on training his blind fighting. Finishing his taijutsu kata, his body began glowing bright blue as the massive sphere of water was broken apart and turned into countless small orbs of water, all circling around Naruto. The orbs then shot at him as if to attack. Naruto's form blurred as he used his inhuman speed to attack or block the orbs of water. The people watching were stunned to see such a show of not only skill but raw power. Naruto was hitting and blocking each orb of water that came at him using both his arms and his 6 tails. The truly frightening part was that he wasn't even tapping into his demonic powers, it was all his human powers. As the last sphere of water flew at Naruto, he held his hand out to halt it. He gestured with his hand and grabbed it as it writhed and took the form of a double-edged long sword and froze into ice. He then melted it back into water and began experimenting with shapes: shuriken, kunai, swords, a spear, a club and finally, oddest of all, a rose. He turned the ice into a rose and then charged it with chakra, causing it to gain a prism-like glow to it. Naruto then dismissed the ice rose and let it turn back into water. His ears twitched slightly and a smell drifted through the air. He could smell clover oil, metal, medicinal herbs, lavender and cinnamon rolls. He mentally chuckled. It seems as if Tenten was trying to follow Hinata's example in her favorite pastime of Naruto-kun stalking. He didn't really mind. He knew the Hyuga heiress meant no harm and was very fond of him. If he was honest with himself, he'd admit that he was flattered. Tenten hadn't really surprised him much either, considering she made it a habit to watch him train his kenjutsu whenever possible. Besides, It's not like he was trying to hide anything anymore, so he'd let them have their fun for now while he worked out his own problems. Sakura and Ino had gone through great lengths to be nicer to him now, and he could tell it was genuine. You can't fool a fox, at least not for a prolonged period of time. He still had some rather deep trust issues with both, though. They had treated him like shit when he was younger. Well, not quite so bad towards the end, just before Sasuke betrayed them and he left to train. But many previous years of abuse and insults just didn't go away, even if it was the stupidity of children. He didn't hate either one of them, not by a long shot. He had always had some sort of feelings for Sakura, though not as strong as they used to be, and he did find Ino to be both very attractive and amusing to be around, when she wasn't tearing into Shikamaru for being lazy or Kiba for being a pervert. Tenten and Temari were a lot alike. Tenten was a bit of a tomboy and Temari was the rough and tough kunoichi, though both had their softer sides. It seemed both had an odd need for physical contact, such as cuddling or holding hands. Perhaps it was to offset their otherwise strong personalities. Both girls also had explosive tempers as well, with Tenten's favorite thing to do being turning the source of her ire into a living target for various sharp and pointy objects. Temari would either blast away with wind jutsu or wield her battle fan like a war mace. Thankfully he hadn't been on the receiving end of any of the girls' ire thus far. Hinata was pretty much the same she used to be. Still quiet, shy, and has a habit of either doing cute things with her fingers or fainting when under too much mental stress. She still blushed a lot, and more than once Naruto had caught her getting a nosebleed. It's always the quiet ones. Her Juyuken skills had vastly improved and her medical skills were nearly on par with Sakura's thanks to Hinata's perfected chakra control and Byakugan. Naruto remembered how he used to think she was weird and a bit creepy. He didn't think so anymore. Like the others, she had grown into a very beautiful young woman. As Naruto approached the shore, his training done for now, he felt Tenten's and Hinata's presences leave. Shrugging it off, he wiped some sweat off with a wet towel and began reapplying his bandages that covered his seal. His scarf and trench coat sitting only a few feet away. Just as he finished wrapping his lower torso, a small messenger slug appeared in front of him in a puff of smoke, put down a scroll and vanished. Naruto picked up the small scroll. It was from Tsunade, requesting his presence in her office ASAP. Hiding his tails and fox ears quickly, he picked up his coat and scarf, placing them on hastily before bounding into the tree line in a dead run towards the Hokage Tower. All conversation in the Hokage's office came to a halt as Naruto burst through the doors. The people within the room consisted of Tsunade, Jiraiya, Kakashi, Sakura, Ino, Tenten, Hinata, and Tun, who was sleeping in the corner. The group turned to look at the Namikaze heir, and he could tell by the grim looks on the two Sannin that this was not a mere social call. "You called, Tsunade-sama?" Naruto asked in full mission mode. The blonde female Hokage sighed and took a swig of sake. "Yes, there have been some developments that have come about." Jiraiya stepped up. "First, Sasuke Uchiha attacked Orochimaru 3 days ago and seemingly killed him, but not before Orochimaru was able to perform the body switch jutsu. Part of him is now in Uchiha and the rest is recovering with Kabuto Yakushi. Uchiha seems to have control of Orochimaru's personality, for now, but he is being hailed as a hero by various members of the council, mostly civilian and those against you. He has fled Odo with 3 of Orochimaru's best. Karen, Jugo and Suigetsu. They and a large number of other Odo nin are loyal to the Uchiha. Also, he has put a bounty out on you, Naruto. He wants you to be brought in alive so that he can kill you and obtain his Magankyo Sharingan. He will likely be seeking you out along with Itachi." Sakura and Ino looked horrified. The boy they had once had a crush on wanted to murder his best friend just to gain more power. It was bad enough that he became a traitor, but now this. Tenten and Hinata also looked upset, but they were more angry than anything. Naruto was just impassive. "I suspected as much," Naruto replied. "The only reason, Itachi, left the little bastard alive wasn't warped. His mind was so that he would gain the Magankyo and then Itachi could harvest them and gain the immortality and true powers gained from taking a sibling's Magankyo Sharingan. Just like Madara did. That was the precise reason Orochimaru wanted Sasuke Tem. With him he could gain the immortality he desires so much. Naruto sighs and shakes his head. In the end, you have to pity Sasuke. He is and has always been nothing but a pawn, his quest destroying his own soul and making it easier for those desiring his power to use him. Is that really true, Tsunade-sensei? Sakura asked, looking a bit ill. Sure, she wasn't in love with the boy anymore, but she still did want him back as a friend. I'm afraid so, Sakura. Tsunade answered. Madara, the founder of the Uchiha clan, gained great power and immortality but at a nasty price. You see, in order to gain the Magankyo level of Sharingan you must murder your best friend in cold blood. No matter how cold-hearted you are, there will always be a twinge of guilt over the death you caused. This awakens the ultimate form of the Sharingan. The other price of this is a disease that comes with the power. It slowly eats away at the eyes and chakra centers within the eyes, causing the holder of the Magankyo to eventually go completely blind. However, if you have a sibling who also has a Magankyo level Sharingan and you steal that sibling's eyes to replace your own, it not only stops the disease completely but it grants a horrible level of tainted power and immortality to the one who did this. Madara was the first to discover it, and we believe that he trained Itachi so that he could join him. Sasuke also knows of this and is seeking to take his brother's eyes since Itachi has not experienced any problems from the Magankyo disease yet. But he can't gain this power until he has his own Magankyo. That is why Naruto is his other target. Tsunade explained. Does this have something to do with that cursed seal thing that Orochimaru put on him 4 years ago? Ino asked. Not completely. Jiraiya said. The cursed seal of heaven uses an odd combination of tainted devil chakra and cells extracted from one of Orochimaru's experiments. It does eventually corrupt the mind, but only with the person's own dark emotions and thoughts. It doesn't create what is already there. The cells cause corruption but only take hold if the person is liable to be corrupt in the first place. The seal cannot make the inflicted person do anything other than what they would already be slightly inclined to do. It removes their inhibitions on their darker personality aspects, so to speak. When that happens, the evil chakra, the seal, draws power from further taints the person and alters them on a genetic level. It makes them into a type of Hanyu like Naruto, but by using a power and being far more evil and tainted than even Kyuubi was. Devils, Naruto said. Devil kind is the foulest and most evil of entities out there, literally evil incarnate. Even the lowest level of devil is on par with a four-tailed demon. The difference between the two is that demons are initially beasts of various tails. Some are smart and others are completely primal. Some of the tailed beasts even act as protectors of certain areas. Gobi the five-tailed wolf is a master of elements and illusions and acts as a guardian of forests and mountains. Nibi the Necomanta, the two-tailed cat, is another that isn't evil. She is a master of hellfire and necromancy. She is one of the smartest of the Biju, and an acquaintance of mine is her former container, who with mine and Jiraiya's help merged with the girl she was sealed in to become a Hanyu, yet retain both personalities so she could lend aid when needed. Devils though work on a different level though. Demons usually represent elements and animals. Occasionally one can take on a semi-human form. A devil though is a humanoid creature of evil in its purest forms. They have elemental capabilities like demons do, but they represent sins and dark emotions such as rage, hate and envy. They thrive and live off of the suffering and anguish of other beings, demons included. It gives them a great boost in power. They also have an insatiable taste for blood and flesh, especially that of human virgins. The most powerful is some sort of dark god known as the Lord of Anarchy and Destruction. No one knows what its name is though. The ones you really have to be careful of are the Sin Lords. They are very powerful, easily matching Kyuubi, and usually are backed by armies of lesser devils, enslaved demons and nightbreeds like ghouls, vampires, zombies and the like. Naruto explained. Have you ever fought one of those devil things? Tenten asked. Naruto nodded. Once, a famine devil, It was causing mass destruction of crops in far wheat country. Its favorite thing to do was suck the life force from anything it came in contact with. Damn thing nearly killed me the first time I fought it. If I hadn't awakened my sixth tail fighting it, I probably would have died. The others in the room winced. No one liked the idea of something powerful enough that could kill someone as powerful as Naruto. Jiraiya remembered that fight all too well. It was when Naruto discovered the secrets behind the two swords his father left for him. It was also during that time that Jiraiya saw another power slowly beginning to awaken within Naruto, one that was still locked away. It was beyond any power he had ever seen, but for some reason, Naruto couldn't unlock it. An elder sage they had visited in their travels had told him that Naruto couldn't unlock the power without first obtaining the key, which he called the sacred element. It still gave the old pervert a headache trying to figure out the ancient sage's true meaning. There is something else too, Tsunade said, getting everyone back to the subject. Naruto, I have a mission for you, Kakashi, and whoever else you see fit to take with you. We told you about the Uchiha first because there is a chance you might run into him on this mission. This will be your first Chunin mission and I am placing you in charge. She paused for a moment and then continued. The cage of Suna has been kidnapped by the Akatsuki. She said. Gaara, when the hell did this happen? Naruto asked, slightly surprised. Temari had told him about Gaara becoming the new cage about a week ago. Naruto had been happy for his friend since Gaara's reasons were to gain more precious people and protect them. Temari-san sent a messenger bird here about a half hour ago. 2 members of the Akatsuki named Sasori and Deidara attacked Suna a few days ago just before she got there. Her brother Kankuro was badly injured in the fight. She and a healer named Chio requested our help to get him back. Also, Itachi has been seen in the area as well. Once you get to Suna, Temari and Chio will guide you to where the Akatsuki have taken Gaara to extract Shukaku. It should take them about 2 to 3 days to do so. Tsunade said. But it'll take that long to get there. Suna is a 3-day journey from here, even for a Junin. Sakura said worriedly. Naruto had gone silent, his eyes closed and his arms crossed as he went into deep thought. This was a problem. Asuma, Choji and Shikamaru were out on a mission to Spring Country, solidifying trade agreements. Guy, Lee, Neji and Kiba were also out on a mission in Water Country. He wasn't sure of the details, only that they were in Kiri, the village hidden in the mists. Kurenai was out on maternity leave, having discovered her pregnancy 6 days ago. Enko was also out due an assassination mission in Grass Country. The only people he could take were in the room with him. All right, Naruto said, opening his eyes. I can get us all there in about a day and a half, maybe less if we don't run into problems. Kakashi-sensei will be my co-leader for this mission. If I am not around, then he is in charge. I want Sakura, Ino, Tenten and Hinata to come as well. Sakura will be our main medic, Ino our interrogator, Hinata can act as a scout, and Tenten's ranged kenjutsu skills will help. Ero Sennin, I want you to stay here and help Mom keep things safe here. Jiraiya nodded, taking pride in how quickly and efficiently Naruto was taking hold of the situation, though he really wished the teen would stop using that damned nickname. Kakashi and Tsunade were also quite impressed. The girls were just glad to be helping their crush. We will leave in exactly 30 minutes, gather all you will need for a 2-week-long mission and meet me at the East Gate. Naruto said to the group. But how will we get there so quickly, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked. Naruto gave her a lopsided smile. You'll see soon enough, Hinata-chan, now let's go. He said, and flame ported out of the office. The others looked at each other, nodded and vanished in either puffs of smoke or swirls of leaves. Will they be all right, Jiraiya? Tsunade asked, feeling a bit worried. The pervert, for once trying to be comforting, placed a hand on her shoulder. There isn't much out there that can actually kill Naruto anymore, and trying to extract the Kyuubi is impossible now that Naruto is a Hanyu. The Akatsuki is strong, but it would take almost all of them to take down Naruto in a fight if he releases his full power. Many would think that being half-demon is what gives him an edge, when in truth it is his half-human side that gives him the edge he will need. Have faith in him, Tsunade Harem, he has grown much, not only in power but heart as well. He will protect them all and bring them back home safely. Jiraiya said confidently. I hope you're right, Tsunade said in but a whisper. 30 minutes later, Sakura, Tenten, Ino and Hinata ran up to the east gate followed by Kakashi who had appeared from a puff of smoke. They could see Naruto waiting a short ways outside of the gate. He was leaning against a tree, eyes closed and seemingly unaware of his surroundings. However, before the group could get within earshot of him he stood up to his full height and opened his eyes. Okay, we're here, Naruto, how do you plan on getting us to Suna so quickly? Kakashi asked curiously. Naruto just smiled and walked a bit of distance from them. Like this, he said simply. Naruto's chakra spiked harshly causing him to be surrounded by a sapphire and ruby spiral of energy. There was a sudden mass of black smoke that filled the area. A large golden furred tail with a silver tip swept out from the smoke as it began to clear. The breeze picked up and the smoke was carried off. The group could only stare in shock. Standing before them was a six-tailed demon fox, a little larger than a small house and with fur the same color as Naruto's hair. Its eyes gave off a gentle icy sapphire blue glow and held a familiar piercing nature about them. The fox looked like a six-tailed version of Kyuubi, but the fur color, eye color and overall feeling around it was the complete opposite of what was expected with the nine-tailed demon. There was no bloodlust, killing intent or malicious feelings, just a strong feeling of safeness and security. Naruto padded up to them a bit and then lay down, lowering his massive head to look at his friends' stunned faces as his longer than usual fox ears twitched slightly as various sounds filtered into them. A slightly amused glint could be seen in his glowing blue eyes. This is my full demon form, though it is not as large as I can grow. Naruto said in a soft demonic voice. Naruto-kun, is that really you? Sakura asked in awe as she shyly touched his furry muzzle. Despite its stiff and spiky look the fur was soft and silky to the touch, much like some of the fine silks and satins that were imported from Kiri. Yes, Sakura-chan, it's me. I'm pretty fast so I'll be carrying all of you to Suna. This was the fastest and most efficient method I could come up with. Naruto replied secretly enjoying the pink-haired girl's petting of his fur. Tenten, Ino and Hinata were each looking at him with big eyes, the word cute was flashing through their mind. Kakashi's sweat dropped. Leave it to these girls to see Naruto's full demon form as nothing more than an overgrown puppy or stuffed toy, though part of him was impressed with Naruto's line of thought, at his size and speed they could cover a lot of ground. Are you sure you can handle running for that long? Kakashi asked. Yes, I had loads of stamina before, but now it is near infinite. Naruto answered. The four girls flushed slightly as they thought of other, very fun, uses for such monstrous stamina. Kakashi noticed and stifled a perverted giggle. All right, ladies, sensei, climb on. Naruto said. The four girls happily climbed onto Naruto, each secretly enjoying the feeling of his soft fur and pleasantly warm body. Kakashi chuckled a bit and hopped up and sat down towards the middle of his back. Each of them had the presence of mind to start using a bit of chakra to ensure that they could cling to Naruto's massive form since it was likely that traveling at high speeds they would fall off otherwise. Hold on tight, here we go. Naruto warned and got up, turned and began bounding off in the direction of Suna. Naruto created a small wind barrier around them so that the roaring of the wind wouldn't cut out conversation or sudden noises that they would need to hear, it also kept them from getting blown off. Kakashi and the girls marveled at how fast they were going as trees flashed by in blurs. Naruto had even bounded over a small village that was in the travel path, scaring the shit out of the commoners. Kakashi laughed when a drunk looked at his sake bottle, scowled and tossed it aside as they passed. This is so awesome. Ino whooped out excitedly. Sure beats riding horses. Tenten agreed. This fur is so soft. Hinata said blushing. If Naruto-kun ever gets tired of being a shinobi, he would make a great taxi service. Sakura said as she relaxed into the large fox's neck. Ino suddenly got a lecherous grin on her features. I wonder what the other girls in Konoha would think if we told them that we got to ride Naruto-kun. She wondered. Oh, now things just got interesting. Kakashi thought with a quiet perverted giggle as the other three blushed. Hinata nearly fainting in the process. Ino, that's so naughty. Tenten giggled. True. Ino giggled. But I bet with his stamina he could keep all four of us entertained for quite a while. Hell, even Tamari could join in on that and he'd probably still wear us out. Ino. Sakura chided while wiping some blood trickling out of her nose. Tenten and Hinata weren't doing much better as they got mental pictures. Even Ino got a slight nosebleed from her own thoughts. I wonder if I should let them know that I can hear every word they say. Though I'd never pegged Ino as a pervert, and what the hell is that smell coming from them? Oh, well, damn, that's unexpected, hope they brought some changes of clothes. Naruto silently mused with a sweat drop. Now, Naruto was actually quite flattered that the girls found him so attractive, but he wanted more than the physical when it came to a relationship, that is if he actually chose to pursue one. He knew the girls were aware of his circumstances and had on several occasions held discussions about him. According to Tsunade, the first two talks nearly ended in a five-way brawl between the girls since none of them really wanted to share. But from the sounds of it they had worked out most of that problem. Naruto fought back the urge to sigh. Why couldn't his life get easier just for once? It had been a little over half a day since the team's departure from Konoha and Naruto's large form was still running at full tilt towards Suna. They were actually making better time than previously thought. They had already passed the halfway point. Naruto's glowing blue eyes suddenly narrowed as his danger senses triggered. There was an odd scent in the air, a mixture of clay, blood and ash from explosives. Looking up, he saw a very large bird made of clay coming at them, a flock of smaller birds fanning out in front of it. Shit! Hold on back there, we're under attack. Naruto roared out and erected a dome of crimson chakra over them. The smaller birds impacted with the shield and blew up in multiple and quite loud explosions. Naruto lay down and his passengers quickly got off of him. Naruto shifted into his Hanyu form as the large bird landed in front of them. A feminine-looking man with blonde hair smirked at them. Behind him was the familiar form of Itachi Uchiha. Art is a blast, yeah. The man said cockily. The name's Deidara, formerly of Iowa. Now hand over that tailed beast you guys were riding on, yeah. Like I'd go anywhere with you two goblins. Naruto grumbled irritably. Kakashi snickered at the barb as Deidara took offense. Kakashi-sensei, you up for handling Weasel Tem while I handle Goldilocks here? I should be able to handle him. Kakashi said confidently. Good. Just in case though, take Sakura, Hinata and Ino as backup, in case he tries Tsukiyomi again. Tenten, I want you to cover me from a safe distance while I handle our gender-challenged friend here. Naruto said, getting an affirmative from the others. Oi, I'm a guy, damn it. Deidara shouted indignantly. And for that matter, I thought the six-tailed was a lizard, yeah. Naruto released his shield and leveled a death glare at the two as his killing intent filled the air. Glowing blue eyes turned glowing red, his six tails flailing behind him like cobras waiting to strike. I am not the six tails. I am Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki, Kitsune Hanyu and soon-to-be nine-tailed lord. Sorry to burst your bubbles, but the Kyuubi will soon cease to exist. I will take his place, but as a Hanyu, though please do try to capture and seal me. I need the entertainment. Naruto purred the last part sinisterly. Deidara scowled at the blonde Hanyu as Kakashi and his group shot off after Itachi. Tenten backed off a safe distance and began preparing her throwing weapons. Another flock of clay birds shot out at Naruto, this time from all directions, each bird turning into a shuriken. Naruto drew his blades as his body blurred, his arms going so fast that they became invisible to even a well-trained eye. The sounds of loud clangs filled the air as hundreds of clay shuriken were either blocked or destroyed. Some did manage to get past Naruto's defenses, though leaving him with quite a few new wounds. Not that it was a worry, these weren't laced with a deadly poison, so his healing factor kicked in quickly. Naruto stopped and faced his enemy once again. He could tell that Kakashi and the others were having some trouble against Itachi. Seeing as how this was the Akatsuki and he was in a hurry, the time for play was over. Tenten gasped as Naruto settled into a stance as a mixture of purple, red and blue chakra swirled around him in an angry torrent. This stance, she had heard of it in ancient Kenjutsu legends. It was said that a warrior of legend once walked ancient Earth in a time before the first great human apocalypse. He had two blades, one of pure light and the other of pure dark. His skills and power was unmatched by any mortal and many immortal beings. He was the last of the great demon devil hunters. Arashi Kazama, master of the mystical beast style. But he passed on millennia ago, and with him it was thought his style and blades were lost. Naruto-kun, just who are you really? Tenten whispered. Deidara blanched when Naruto glared at him. The kid's killing intent was as bad, if not worse, than the Kyuubi's had been in its prime. And his eyes, those baleful, crimson glowing eyes, those eyes that now seemed to have flames burning within them. The power he was radiating, it was scorching and ripping up the ground beneath him, and the dam level continued to rise. The feminine Akatsuki member knew he stood no chance against this thing unless he had better help. Frantically he created a clay clone and prepared to do a substitution to make his escape. He needed to get back to Sasori to help with the extraction of Shukaku. Their leader wasn't going to like this turn of events. It meant that the Kyuubi would likely be out of their reach, and he had been pissed off for months about losing the Nibi to its host. The chakra around Naruto switched to a mixture of red and white hot fire, oddly not harming him but making him look all the more fierce. A piercing trill thundered through the air as the flames began taking a form around the young Hanyu, the form of a large bird of fire. RRRAAAWWWKK. The fire bird screeched once more as Naruto crouched down and two flaming wings spread out. Mystic Arts, Blazing Phoenix Rush. Naruto snapped, followed by another thundering trill. Naruto's form encased within the massive fire bird shot forward, scorching and tearing up the earth beneath him. Deidara cringed. The kid was too damn fast. The feminine Mon's form was blasted straight up into the air with Naruto's flaming form right behind him. The flaming bird containing Naruto flashed by Deidara at breakneck speed and stopped 50 feet above him and hovered there. Naruto looked down at his prey. Time to finish this. Mystic Fire Release. Phoenix Flare Inferno. Deidara's eyes widened as his eyebrows rose up into his hairline. Hanyu Naruto had thrust his blades in a down-slash motion and caused the flaming fire bird surrounding him to shoot towards him. Below the spectacle, Tenten let out a strangled eep and got the hell out of the blast zone area. That thing was going to hit, and hit very hard. At this point she was beginning to wonder, who was more deadly, her crush or the damn idiots after him. She let out another uncharacteristic eep when Naruto suddenly appeared in front of her, wrapped his arms and tails around her and erected a glowing red barrier. She flushed bright pink at the feel of his muscles pressed against her body, but her eyes could not be peeled from the sight before her. The massive fire bird had hit its target and struck the ground, causing a minor quake. The ground at the impact zone was ripped up, scorched and incinerated all at the same time as a small mushroom cloud rose from the crater. Deidara, burned and bruised, managed to get out of the way at the last moment using a substitution. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he flew off at high speed on the back of one of his giant clay birds, cursing Naruto the entire time. Naruto looked down at the girl he had shielded from the blast. Her hands had, be it consciously or subconsciously, started traveling up and down his muscular torso. Tenten's eyes had glazed over as she felt Naruto's rippling muscles beneath her fingertips, and she suddenly forgot the reason she was there as her head began to swim in a haze of emotion. Her cheeks were tinted bring pink, and if Naruto was honest with himself, she looked very cute at the moment. Never mind the fact that her touch was causing him to flush slightly as well. However, he settled for cocking an eyebrow at her. Tenten, you okay? Yeah, you're fine, never felt better, such nice hard. Eep. She startled as her mind suddenly registered what was going on. Naruto-kun. You, fine, let's go help the others. She stumbled out as he let go of her and idly noted a frown on her features at the loss of his touch. Naruto frowned a bit. What the hell is with all these girls falling for me all of a sudden, and that musky smell coming from them? Damn it. I don't have time for this. Tenten, you back up the other girls, I'm going to help Kakashi eliminate a certain weasel Tem. Naruto said, going back into mission mode. Tenten nodded and followed after Naruto. She wished she could have provided him more help with the girly guy, but how do you help someone that can take out an S-class missing nin in 2 hits and act like it was a warm-up? Little did she know that Naruto had used a fair amount of chaos chakra in that attack, and mixed with his other 2 chakras he had depleted his stores by a quarter. He did have a lot of chakra to spare, more than most cage-level ninja, but he wouldn't have the near-limitless amounts his tenant does until the final tail was assimilated. Sakura watched worriedly as Kakashi and Hinata took on Itachi. Ino had almost gotten in a solid hit but ended up nearly being gutted by the bastard's wakizashi. She gritted her teeth as she continued to use her mystical palm jutsu to heal Ino, who was letting out the occasional hiss of pain. They had all heard and felt the explosions coming from the air that Naruto and Tenten were fighting off the gender-challenged Akatsuki member. After the explosion, Sakura had caught sight of him fleeing the area. She only hoped Naruto hadn't had too much trouble with him. Hinata tried for a fast Juyuken strike only to get a nasty thrust kick to her gut. She was sent back a few feet until she hit something both hard and soft, and warm. Looking up, she could see Naruto, glaring murderously at Itachi, fangs bared and tails flailing angrily. Are you alright, Hinata-chan? He asked in a soft growling tone. Why yes, Naruto-kun. I am fine, she said, blushing as he helped her stand straight. Tenten ran up. Go help, Kakashi-san, I'll keep Hinata safe, she said. Naruto nodded and shot his glare back at the elder Uchiha brother. A low, primal growl rippled up from deep in his throat, causing both girls to shiver slightly. As he began to walk forward, electrical energy began crackling and surging around his right arm. He opened his hand, a familiar spiraling ball of pure chakra appeared, but this time you could see lightning arcing and surging through it as it grew to the size of a soft ball. Lightning release. Element Rasengan. Naruto snarled as he began his charge towards Itachi. Kakashi cringed and jumped back. The amount of chakra in Naruto's attack was equivalent to his Raikiri, only where his cuts. Naruto's drills and grinds, and thanks to the lightning, pierces. Foolish. Itachi muttered and went through some hand signs. Fire release. Phoenix Immortal Flames Jutsu. A barrage of bird-shaped fire balls spat out from Itachi's mouth and closed in on Naruto. Naruto vanished in a yellow flash before they could reach, and a second later, Itachi felt an indescribable pain sear through his chest as the Rasengan ripped through his flesh. However, instead of falling over dead, Itachi turned into a mass of bone, blood and dust as he crumbled around Naruto's arm. What the hell? Kakashi wondered. That wasn't Itachi. Naruto answered, glaring at the remains, his eyes narrowed. What do you mean that wasn't Itachi? Kakashi asked, letting some of his usual indifferent facade falter. Naruto's narrowed eyes continued to study the pile of dust and bones in front of them. A frown forming on his face as he sniffed the air, his tongue flitting out to taste the air for a moment. It's just as I said. That wasn't Itachi, rather it was a rather vile form of kinjutsu. That, or rather it was known as a dead soldier clone. It requires the body of a recently killed person, a good amount of chakra and the blood of the person you wish to have the clone mimic. It is a bit like Orochimaru's cursed earth summoning, except this doesn't revive copies of fallen people but makes an exact subservient duplicate of a living person with all of that person's personality, powers and abilities. The reason it has to be a recently killed person is because chakra doesn't leave the human body for 24 hours after death, and this jutsu makes it easier when you either want to have someone in two places at once or to have a very good decoy, since it's an exact copy of the person cloned and more stable than a shadow clone. I have a variation called a blood clone that I can do that is similar to this, but it requires a large amount of chakra and a blood sacrifice from me as well as a shadow clone. Naruto explained. But who has the kind of power to do such a horrible jutsu? Ino asked as Sakura helped her walk over next to them. The Akatsuki leader, Pian, would be more than capable, or perhaps someone else just as powerful. Naruto answered and turned to look her over. The wound she had gotten was still red and tender. Why isn't your wound fully healed yet? He asked with a frown. Sakura scowled. That bastard had some sort of poison on his sword. I managed to extract it, but doing so cost me most of my chakra. I was barely able to finish patching her up. Naruto went through several hand seals and his hands began glowing a rich emerald green color. The girls gasped in shock. When did you learn medical jutsu? Tenten asked. During my training trip, Mom sent a few medical scrolls with me so I could learn some basics like mystical palm, chakra scalpel and the poison purge jutsu. I learned that if I use some of my own demonic chakra with it, I can make more powerful versions, including my purification jutsu. But if something is messing with my chakra, like when I was poisoned, I can't do squat. Besides, I'm a field medic at best. I only know a few others like the diagnostic jutsu and pain reliever jutsu. Other than that, I don't know much other than mandatory first aid. Naruto stated as he quickly finished healing Ino's wound. You could see a few beads of sweat on his brow due to intense concentration since his chakra was more potent than a human's. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Ino started. Don't worry about it, Naruto said and gave her and Sakura a soldier pill each. Take those and we'll get on our way, that is if no one else needs medical attention. I'm good, Kakashi answered. Same here, Tenten said. I am fine, Hinata said with a small smile. Naruto nodded and leapt away from them, transforming into his fox form in mid-jump. He landed with a thunderous thud and got down so his friends could climb back on. Alright, let's get going. We've little time to waste and I'm going full tilt until we reach Suna, so all of you hold on tight. Naruto's voice rumbled. Aren't you getting a bit tired, Naruto-kun? Sakura asked concerned. Don't worry, Sakura-chan, I will be just fine. It will take more than a gender challenge, mad bomber with an art obsession and a dead soldier clone to slow me down. Besides, I can rest once we get to Suna if I need it. Naruto answered, raising the wind barrier once again and taking off in a high-speed run. After a short while of silence, Naruto decided to speak up again. I want all of you to promise me something, he said in a suddenly stern voice. Curious, Kakashi asked. And what might that be? There is a good chance that by the time we get to where Gaara is being held, that Shukaku will have been extracted from him. If that is the case, I want all of you to get as far away as you can. I will handle Shukaku, Naruto answered. The girls didn't like where this was going. How do you plan on doing that, Naruto-kun? Ino asked, a bit worried. I will destroy him and then transfer his power back into Gaara. If that demented Tanuki has been extracted, then Gaara is as good as dead, but if I use my own power to kill Shukaku and strip it of its power and place that power back into Gaara, then his life can be restored. Naruto explained. I'm sensing a bit here, Sakura said in a stern tone. If I screw up, the excess energies in the area will tear my body to shreds and vaporize me. Naruto answered nonchalant. Kakashi frowned. In other words, you will be completely obliterated. What? The four girls screeched. That's putting it mildly, Kakashi-sensei. A screw-up of that magnitude would level everything in a 100-mile radius of the blast zone, and since I would be in the centralmost part of it, you wouldn't even be able to find enough to take back to Konoha in a matchbox. Naruto added. I won't let you, Sakura said in almost a whisper, her eyes not meeting anything but Naruto's fur. Is there another way, something less dangerous? Kakashi asked. He didn't want to lose another student. He wouldn't be able to live with himself if he did. We won't let you take that kind of risk. Ino blurted out. I agree, there must be some other way. Tenten said. Yes. Do you know another way? Hinata asked. No, I do not. But the chances of me screwing something like that up are slim to none. I know well the risks, and even if you all wanted to stop me, you couldn't. I will not let Gaara die. He is a very good friend. Besides, if Shukaku hasn't been removed from him, then we have nothing to worry about. I'll just fix his seals and add a few more to destroy Shukaku and give Gaara its power. Naruto said as they broke into the wide expanses of Wind Country's desert. Please, let that demon still be sealed in Gaara. Kami, please. I already lost one person I thought I loved. I couldn't live if I lost the person I know I love. Sakura prayed as she looked worriedly at Naruto. Sorry, Sakura-chan. Everyone, but if I have to do it, I will. I can't let those bastards take any more of my precious people away from me. I lost a brother because he couldn't fight his own darkness. I won't lose another to a group of mad men. I will die before I let that happen. Naruto thought as his massive form tore up the dunes at top speed. Temari was walking towards the gates of Suna. She was deeply troubled. Her little brother was kidnapped by those Akatsuki bastards, and if they got Shukaku, she would lose him. She just couldn't. Not now. Not when they had started to become so much more closer over the past few years since he met Naruto. To make matters even worse, her other brother was in the hospital with a horrible poison from his fight with one of their own missing ninja, Sasori. Temari let out a growl. Kankuro might be a baka sometimes, but if he dies, so help her, she was going to rip Sasori apart. Her only hope was that Tsunade-sama got her message and sent some help. What the hell is that? Came the alarmed voice of one of the Chunin guards on top of the gate's watchtowers. Concerned and more than a little worried, Temari leapt up to the Chunin to see what was wrong. What's going on? Is it another attack? She asked, preparing herself. I'm not sure. Look out there, north by northwest, and you'll see what I'm talking about. He said in a fearful voice. Temari grabbed a telescope and brought it up to her eye and began scanning the desert. What she saw caused her heart to skip a beat. A massive form was moving towards Suna at high speeds. A large spray of sand and a massive cloud of dust was being kicked up behind whatever it was. Making a quick adjustment to the telescope, she looked back through it in hopes of getting a better view of what was coming. What she saw shocked her. A massive golden-furred fox with 6 tails billowing behind it was tearing through the desert at speeds that she was sure that not even Rock Lee or Guy Maida could hope to achieve. At first she was terrified. Was their village going to be attacked by a tailed beast? But upon studying the beast better, she noticed that it wasn't like most of the other tailed beasts she had seen. They looked evil beyond imagination. This creature looked almost divine in a way. It also had brilliant glowing icy sapphire blue eyes that seemed to cut through the dusk light. As the gigantic fox drew closer to Suna, Temari was able to make out 5 human forms riding on its back. One of which she realized was Sakura, due to her pink hair and red-colored outfit. But what in the 9 levels of hell was she doing riding on a gigantic fox? Maybe Naruto summoned it for them. It was the only thing she could think of. Stand down. That's the team from Konoha. Temari shouted. They were sent here to help us out. Temari was significantly impressed. Whatever that fox was, it was fast, extremely fast. She had only sent out the call for help last night. To think that they made a 3-day trip in the matter of one single day, it was amazing. As the fox grew much closer to Suna, Temari signaled for the Chunins to open the gates and let it in. About 10 minutes later, the massive 6-tailed fox shot through the gates and came to a grinding halt so it wouldn't damage any property. As it lay down, Sakura, Hinata, Ino, Tenten and Kakashi got off of it. Temari could see that the large beast was slightly winded. Who wouldn't be if they were running across a scorching desert? What happened next though gave her a total shock. There was a large puff of black smoke, and when it vanished, Naruto, with his tails and ears still visible, was kneeling down on one knee and catching his breath. Damn it. That dessert is friggin' hot. He grumbled and pulled out a canteen of water and began gulping it down to replenish some moisture to his body. Standing back up and working out a few kinks in his neck, Naruto put away his canteen and looked around him. He noticed many of the people of Suna were looking at him with something akin to awe. To his surprise, there was no fear or hate, though. It was nice. A little girl walked up to him, about 10 years old, her eyes wide and full of innocent curiosity. That was really neat. Can you turn into other animals, Oni-chan? She asked excitedly. Tamari stopped herself from walking over and with the other girls watched the scene taking place before them. Naruto looked down at the little girl, his eyes had softened considerably and a small smile graced his lips. He knelt back down so he was eye level with the child. No, I can only turn into a fox. He answered in a kindly tone. Okay, I like your tails, they are very pretty. She said a bit shyly. Naruto chuckled and patted the girl on the head, causing her to let out a couple of giggles at the show of attention. Thank you. My name is Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki. What is yours, little one? He asked. The little girl beamed. My name is Amy Tanaka. Did you come to help Kazekage Onisama? She asked. Yes, I did. Gaara is a very good friend of mine, so don't worry about him. I promise to bring him back safe and sound. Naruto said, happy to see Gaara had gained many precious people to protect. Amy smiled happily and hugged Naruto. He was a bit surprised but returned the gesture. Amy let him go, bowed to him and skipped off to talk to her friends. A soft half smile was on Naruto's face as he watched the little girl talk excitedly to her friends. The 5 young ladies that had watched him each gazed at him with soft eyes. They wondered if he even knew just how good of a father he would make. That thought of course made each of them blush a bit as they thought of him and them having children of their own. Naruto stood back up and looked over at Tamari. How are things here? We heard that Kankuro was injured, how is he faring? He asked. Tamari snapped to and looked a bit upset. He's in critical condition. He has several large wounds and is suffering from a strange type of poison that negates medical jutsu. I was hoping that Sakura-san might be able to help. I will try my best. Sakura said. Just show me where he is and I'll see what I can do for him. I'll come too. I have a jutsu that can purge any poison or impurity from a person. After I do that, Sakura-chan can work on healing Kankuro's wounds. Naruto offered. Tamari bowed. Thank you. He might be a dipstick, but he's still my brother. Let's go then. Sakura said with a smile in hopes of lifting her friend's spirits. Kakashi walked up. The rest of us will help out around the village as best we can. After the 2 of you are done with Kankuro-san, rest up a bit and then we will figure out what to do from there. Good idea, Kakashi-sensei, let's go. Naruto ordered and then followed the blonde and pink-haired ladies to the hospital. A few moments later Tamari, Sakura and Naruto rushed into the in Suna General Hospital where Kankuro was still being treated. The Suna medic nin were doing the best they could and had wrapped up the long gashes across his torso as well as the laceration on his right arm and the hole in his left shin. The poison he had been hit with negated any of their medical chakra, so they had to resort to layman's methods to stem off bleeding and such. Naruto and Sakura scurried about the room, both pulling back their hair and washing their hands before going to look over the patient. Sakura ran an advanced diagnostic jutsu over him and frowned. What's the damage, Sakura-chan? Naruto asked. Her frown deepened. It's a really strange poison. I've never seen it before in any of Tsunade-sensei's scrolls or medical books. It seems that it not only negates medical chakra but it is slowly eating away at his muscles, tendons, organs and chakra coils. It's basically destroying him on a cellular level. It's also bonding to his blood, making it impossible to bleed out the poison. Even if we tried some kind of blood transfusion, the poison would still take effect a short time later. Tamari got really worried. Isn't there anything either of you can do for him? She asked. If I had a fresh sample of the toxins, it would be possible to make an antidote, if an antidote can be made. I haven't seen a poison this deadly since that poison catalogued in Tsunade Sensei's scrolls that are secreted from Orochimaru's Kusanagi sword. Sakura said, feeling bad as she continued to try to find and pinpoint the source of the poison in hopes of isolating it. Hold on a second, let me try something. Naruto said. What are you going to do? Sakura asked. Naruto began going through a long length of odd hand seals, some were familiar and others she had never seen before. I'm going to attempt to use a few special jutsu with my Chaos Chakra. He replied. Chaos Chakra? Temari asked, confused. Naruto nodded. It is a special fusion chakra made up of human chakra, demon chakra and yokai, which is the equivalent of a demon's kai and ki energies. It's a more potent form of chakra than humans use but not as dangerous as my demon chakra is. Naruto explained. Well, a half-truth is better than an outright lie, I guess. But they don't need to worry about my Chaos Chakra, even if it really is more dangerous than Demon Chakra. A soft royal purple glow began surrounding Naruto as he finished his hand seals. Light Arts, Radiant Purification Jutsu, he said as the glow on his hands grew brighter and surrounded Kankuro. Sweat began to bead on Naruto's forehead as he strained to keep his concentration. He had excellent chakra control, but not inhuman control like Sakura did, and his Chaos Chakra made it all the more harder. Sakura gasped as Kankuro's Tenketsu points opened up and a sickly-looking yellow liquid surrounded by purple chakra began leaking out and collecting in a small orb above his chest. Sakura-chan, place a bowl under the poison to catch it. Naruto said through gritted teeth. Nodding, the pink-haired medic quickly placed the bowl under the chakra orb and watched as poison continued to slowly leak out of the Tenketsu until nothing was left. Naruto gently let the foul fluid rest in the bowl and released his jutsu. There, now if it is possible to make an antidote, you can do so now. Naruto said, panting slightly. Using his Chaos Chakra was always draining when used for high-level jutsu. Okay. Sakura said, going through hand seals. Mystical Palm Jutsu. This time Kankuro's body did not reject the healing chakra she was placing into him. She was surprised, however, when Naruto also started using the same jutsu to help out. Even more surprising was the fact that while her healing chakra was a rich grass green color, Naruto's was a rich deep emerald color, meaning it was by far more potent than even her master's. Not that she was surprised. Naruto had always been more powerful than most. This is my altered mystical palm jutsu. While you handle the healing of his wounds and the rebuilding of his skin and flesh, I'll use mine to boost his immune system, accelerate blood cell growth and fix the deterioration on his chakra coils caused by the poison. Naruto said with a deep look of concentration. Right. You want me to handle fixing his tendons too? Sakura asked. Yes, that would be a great help. Naruto answered. Temari was speechless. The way the two worked together was flawless, and the fact that Naruto knew some medical jutsu and could power them using his exceptionally potent chakra was no less than amazing. Sakura was also very impressed. She might know more medical jutsu and procedures that Naruto did, but with some work he could surpass her easily. At one time that would have upset her. Now, it kind of turned her on. The fact that he made a perfect medical assistant wasn't lost on her either. Temari had to smile as Kankuro began coming around and his wounds began healing up. She had much to thank of these two, especially Naruto. Who would have thought that in the time he spent away that he would go from a loud-mouthed, knuckle-headed little squirt to a mature, strong, powerful and handsome young man who also seemed to be a jack of many trades. Huh? Where? What happened? Kankuro moaned and winced in pain. Shit. Hold on a second. Naruto said and adjusted the chakra so a slight hint of lighter green flowed through it. There. That should help with the pain. Naruto? Kankuro asked. Naruto grinned. Yup. My team and I came to help you guys out. As soon as Sakura-chan and I get you patched up and catch a bit of rest, we'll go and save Gaara. Kankuro smiled a bit and nodded slightly. Thank you, both, he said. Sakura smiled. Don't worry, Kankuro-san, that's what friends are for. A few minutes later Sakura had finished with the wounds, tendons and muscles. Naruto finished up a moment later as he helped Kankuro's chakra coils restore themselves. Both Konoha ninjas slumped back a bit. Sakura had used about half of her reserves, Naruto had used another quarter of his chaos chakra and nearly half his human chakra to fix Kankuro up just right. Phew, damn, Sakura-chan, I think I'll leave most of the medical stuff up to you from now on. I might have good control now, but I'm still nowhere near as good as you are. I am impressed though, you've got a lot to be proud of. Naruto said with a smile. Sakura flushed at his praise. Thank you, Naruto-kun, you were a great help to me. I must thank you both too, thanks for healing my brother. Temari said. Naruto waved it off. We're all friends here, it was no big deal. Though I really need to rest up a bit and restore my reserves, that took a bit more out of me than expected. Naruto chuckled. Kankuro sat up in the bed, he was still a little weak and he felt tingly all over. Well, we have a bit of time. I heard Sasori talking about how it would take about 3 to 4 days to properly extract Shukaku, so that means we have at the least another day and a half left. It would probably be best if you stayed here though, I had to fix your chakra coils and they won't be in full functioning order for at least 3 days. Naruto said and took an offered glass of water from Temari. Thanks. Damn it. Kankuro cursed. That bastard, Sasori, really screwed me up. I've never been outclassed in a nin puppet match like that before. What do you expect? He was legendary here in Suna for his ability to make puppets out of his own enemies. His skills far surpass anyone we got here in Suna, not even Gaara could handle him and that Deidara person. Temari retorted. Naruto stood up. I'm going to go check on the others, take it easy for a couple of days Kankuro and you'll be back in top shape. Naruto said and walked out of the room. As soon as he got into the empty hallway he dropped to one knee and hacked up several clots of blood. A scowl crossed his face as he forced his vision to properly focus. Damn, I used way too much chakra. That chaos chakra is too powerful for me to handle in such large amounts without my 9th tail. But if I try to access any more tails before my body is ready for them, then the Fox Tem will take control of my body again. Hey, pretty sad, all my friends think I've become some kind of invincible super ninja, but in truth the more I use Kyuubi's chakra and chaos chakra, the more damage I do to my body, if I use too much at one time. I'll die. If it wasn't for my demonic healing I would be dead by now. I just need to stay alive until I absorb the 9th tail, then my body will be capable of handling all that power, because then I will truly be a full demon. Now Naruto really wasn't fond of the idea that he was slowly becoming a full-blooded demon, or as the elder toad sage that Jiraiya had taken him to see called him, a mystical beast. All Biju started off as mystical beasts, a type of creature that was neither divine or demonic. All Biju had 2 types of chakra, gold and silver divine chakra and red and black demon chakra. Most of the Biju, after many years and battles with others of the demonic races, lost the ability to use their divine power and fell into darkness while others did not. Nibi was one that didn't, though she rarely uses her divine powers due to only having 2 tails worth of power, but she retained enough to keep her mind and will free. Some, like Shukaku, went insane with their power and were lost to it. Sanbi the 3 tails was another who lost it and was now nothing more than a gigantic, 3-tailed snapper turtle that was more animal than intelligent being. The sage had said that Naruto was special, since he started off as a human, and something about his unusually strong will, he would surpass the other Biju. But only if 2 conditions were met. He had to attain the 9th and final tail, and he had to use something called the sacred element to fully unlock his power as a mystical beast. The first of which, that would ironically have a humanoid form as its base form. Shaking himself from his thoughts and wiping the remaining blood from his mouth, Naruto decided to worry about the old toad sage's ramblings later. Because of his Kekkei Genkai, He had a mastery of all the elements, but he had never heard of or seen any kind of sacred element. In fact, the closest thing he could think of was the light element, but that element along with dark and shadow were still locked away. In order for his Kekkei Genkai to gain use of those elements, he had to use that damned sacred one. Naruto sighed. I'll figure it out eventually. Better go see what Kakashi-sensei and the girls are doing. Naruto mumbled and began walking out of the hall, forgetting to clean up the blood he had spat up. Sakura opened the door and started at the sight of the blood on the floor. There were several large splats of crimson on the floor. She glanced up to see Naruto go around the corner. A frown and a worried look crossed her features. Was there something wrong with Naruto that he wasn't telling her or anyone else about? Naruto-kun, she whispered worriedly. Naruto had found Kakashi helping Samsuna Junin, aiding the civilians in clean-up with Tenten. Ino and Hinata were using their medical jutsu to aid any remaining injured citizens since the hospital was pretty full. Naruto went around helping where he could while just using him normal chakra. Thanks to several special soldier pills, he wouldn't have to worry about his human chakra being depleted. His chaos chakra was slowly replenishing itself, and Naruto decided that he'd just stick to using his human or demon chakra since those two were less harmful to use. No way in hell was he even going to attempt using chaos chakra again for a while, since it caused more damage to him than demon chakra did, which was much less now that he was Hanyu. He was back in his human form once again. He felt it best to hide his foxy features while helping out the citizens of Suna. The children didn't seem to be bothered by them. In fact, they seemed to like it, but the adults seemed to get nervous. At least they didn't show an outright hatred of him, just a bit of uneasiness. He could live with that, and he could definitely understand. The modest repairs he, Tenten and Kakashi made to the homes close to where the battle took place were a bit rushed, but they would hold good until the citizens could afford proper repairs. Naruto had wanted to use his shadow clones to aid in the work, but he realized that he needed to conserve his chakra. He might have far more than a cage-level ninja, but he wouldn't gain infinite amounts until he got his final tail, hence the need to conserve. In some ways Suna had been lucky. Only a few casualties had been civilian, and Gaara had been smart enough to lead the battle out of the village, so there was also minimal damage to the village itself. Ninja casualties weren't all that high, 2 genin, 6 chunin and 3 junin deaths in all. Most of which seemed to come from poisoning, though a few had been blown to pieces by Deidara's clay bombs. All things considered, it could have been much worse. Still, even when you didn't know them, it still caused a small amount of pain to bury someone. Each of the ninja that had died, had put their lives out for the protection of their cage and their village. To Naruto, that made them more of a hero than he had ever been. To him, these people needed to be remembered for what they did in the service of their village. So, using some simple earth manipulation, Naruto erected a modest memorial stone and carved into it. This stone tablet is left to honor those who held the Will of Winds. The names engraved upon this tablet are the names of shinobi and kunoichi that selflessly sacrificed themselves to protect what they cherished and believed in. Their memories may fade in the passing of time, but their names and deeds shall be forever set in eternal stone. May this tablet be a reminder to future generations, that to be a true hero, it is not the size of one's strength, the amount of jutsu they know, or how much power they possess, but it's the size of their hearts. May the Will of Winds forever blow and remain strong. Naruto smiled as he finished carving the last bit with a small pointed Rasengan. Kakashi walked up behind him and placed a hand on his shoulder. The Mont's lone eye going over the memorial stone and showing a deep sense of approval. Very similar to the one back home. Kakashi spoke. Yeah, I think Gaara will approve. And perhaps this will show the coming generations of aspiring ninja that just because they became a ninja, they are not all powerful. That the true heroes out there are the ones that sacrifice all that they are to protect their precious people and their village. Naruto replied. Kakashi nodded. Is that why you still continue to sacrifice yourself every day? Is it your hope to become a true hero? Naruto shrugged. I sacrifice, because that is what I am. Naruto said softly, not realizing that a group of people had walked up to listen to him. The girls were among them. When I was a child, I was foolish. I thought that if I became a Hokage, then everyone would have to like me and respect me. I never once realized that such things as trust, respect, and friendship had to be earned. I always went on and on about how I would be some kind of great hero and an all-powerful Hokage, but I never really understood what all that entailed. Then I became a genin, and I was greener than a grasshopper's. Still, with what limited knowledge I had, I did the best I could. My first truly harsh lesson came from our mission to Wave, when we met Zabuza and Haku. It was during that time that I developed my Nindo, and I realized that just because I was a shinobi, I wasn't some kind of god or hero. I realized to most, I was nothing more than a tool, to be used and then cast aside when I was no longer needed. The demon sealed in me, made me a weapon, one that was hated. Still, I went on with my life, usually masked behind a mask of cheerful emotions and a facade of idiocy. I realized that all I truly wanted was to be accepted, to be acknowledged as Naruto and not the demon sealed within me. That didn't really happen, though I was able to make some wonderful friends. That alone was enough to save me from the hell of being alone and the nightmares that plagued my sleeping hours. It wasn't until the one person I grew to see as a brother betrayed me, betrayed us for delusions or power and grandeur, that I finally began to realize that my masks and facades caused me more harm than good and that I needed to train. It wasn't until I got one final bite in that I realized just how much my life revolved around sacrifice. Naruto had gone silent for a few moments, his eyes awash with various emotions as he looked at the engraving he had placed on the memorial stone he made. Kakashi had a frown hidden by his mask. He silently berated himself for not being a better sensei to his student. Sakura felt a sudden lump form in her stomach. She knew what was coming up next. The other girls frowned as well, Tamari especially. She knew how hard the life of a Jinchuriki could be because of Gaara. On that day that he left, Naruto started. The one girl that I had loved more than anything, approached me and begged me to return the person she loved the most, the one who betrayed us. It was at that time that I realized that for one such as me, love was a double-edged sword. Because of what we are, few will ever see us as anything other than the weapon or demon that we supposedly are. I had tried all my life to get her to see me, to notice me, to at least acknowledge me, and the one time she did, it was to ask me to return the one she loved to her. Sakura was feeling smaller and smaller by the minute, her stomach constricting painfully as the full impact of her foolishness as a child hit her. In the end, I couldn't bring myself to hate her, or anyone really. And she did give me something I sought, a way to make her happy, despite the fact that my heart had been broken as well. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but most lessons in life are. So, I put on my usual mask and made my promise to her, a promise to return the traitor to her safely, and to never stop until either he was returned or I was dead. A foolish and childish promise, I know, but I never go back on my word, even if my words were of immature stupidity. As you know, the mission failed, but I said I'd keep that promise. I still will. It would be dishonorable to back out on it. But during my time away training, I learned many things. I was forced to grow up and push myself far beyond the set limits of a normal human. I learned that I was first a Jinchuriki, the power of human sacrifice. Then, I became a Hanyu. The honest truth of it was, I chose to become one so I could gain the power I needed to protect those precious to me, and in one way, as a measure of revenge against the fox for taking my childhood from me. And once I gain the ninth and final tail, I will become a full demon. You see, Kakashi-sensei, I sacrificed my humanity, because that is who and what I am. Some of it was for noble reasons and some of it was revenge against the demon imprisoned in me. I am no hero, I am just a being that wants to do what they know is right, to atone for past sins and to use a power once feared by all, to protect those that it once threatened to harm. And as I slowly absorb Kyuubi's powers, I am killing it. Its soul will slowly be drained and then claimed by Shinigami when its power is mine. That is my vengeance for the loss of my parents and the loss of any chance I had at a normal childhood or life. As Naruto's speech ended, he walked off, leaving a stunned group of listeners. Kakashi had his head bowed as he remembered his sensei and his wife. He felt sick. At one time, Kakashi had blamed Naruto for their deaths. He had gotten over it when the third talked some sense into him. But a slight hint of resentment had always remained, and that was what had caused him to believe Naruto was just a foolish child trying to act like a ninja. His foolish devotion to Obito blinded him to the mental instability of Sasuke as well, and in the end, it had cost him. Sakura felt sick. She felt ashamed, and to be honest, she just wanted to crawl under a rock and shrivel up right now. Sure, she had gotten over her stupid fangirl bit over the years, but she hadn't really, though, of the possible damage she had caused to those around her. Had she been so truly blind to Naruto? No. Not completely. Her inner persona had always berated her for her horrible treatment of him. Hell, her inner persona had even started disliking Sasuke after the Chunin exams when Naruto risked his life against Gaara to save her. She stifled back a sob. Her childish obsession and stupidity had cost her far more than she thought, but could it be fixed? Did she even have a chance to tell Naruto how she felt now? How she had discovered once he was gone, that she did have feelings for him? Probably not. You never know what you've got, until you've lost it or it's gone. Inner Sakura said solemnly before fading back to the recesses of her mind. Ino also felt a blow to her stomach from this. She had been no better than Sakura was when they were children. Though she had never been physically abusive to him, unless you counted that one mission, but she had never really bothered to look his way either. Even when she had admitted that he was a friend and comrade, she never thought of him as anything else. Though she did come to realize that after he left to train, Konoha hadn't been the same without him, she still didn't admit it that she actually liked him being around. It wasn't until she saw him again after 4 years, grown up, mature, powerful and hot as hell, did she actually really start thinking of him in that way. Damn, she really had been a shallow bitch. Tenten frowned. Like Naruto, she too had been an orphan, but she had never dreamed the poor guy had gone through such hell. Granted, she always thought he was kind of cute in a playful sort of way. She had also thought that he was weak since he usually screwed off. She had seen otherwise when he beat the shit out of her crush at the time, Neji Hyuga. She had thought Neji was unstoppable. In truth, it was Naruto who was unstoppable. So she watched him and was amazed with the amount of hatred he endured from others and yet awed at his strength of being. Naruto then went on to bring back her idol, Tsunade, to become the next Hokage and continued to do his best to prove that he was worthy of acceptance. She regretted that it wasn't until a year after he left that she realized that Neji and she would never be. If she had realized it sooner, she could have eased some of Naruto's pain. Hinata felt bad for her crush. She had always looked up to him as her pillar of strength. He always was and always would be her strength. Though she had wanted him all to herself, she realized that as the last Namikaze he would likely take more than one wife. All the girls had made some headway with him, but not much, and now she realized why. Naruto and his self-sacrificing attitude hindered it. He seemed to think that no woman would ever love him. Indeed, he had said as much that night he and Kakashi had spoke on the Hokage monument. But she still had hope that she and the other girls could get through to him, to show him that it didn't matter what a person was, it was who they were that counted. Temari's heart went out to Naruto. She knew all too well how hard life could be for a Jinchuriki. Gaara, until he met Naruto, had been lost in his misery and loneliness. She had tried for years to be a good sister to him, but due to her damned father always trying to kill him, he gained trust issues that screwed up every chance she had at forming a proper sibling relationship. Then Naruto came along, beat the tar out of Gaara, and then rather than kill him, offered him the one thing he never had before, true friendship, no stings attached or hidden agendas. Since then Gaara had regained most of his humanity and they were now a family. Temari had always been extremely grateful to Naruto for what he did, It had shocked her that another Jinchuriki could be so compassionate. Truly, Naruto was the epitome of what a Jinchuriki should be. Perhaps that was the reason she grew to have feelings for him over the years, and if she had her way, she'd show him that he too deserved love. Several hours had passed since Naruto's speech. He was now perched on the Suna gates gazing out over the endless dunes of the deserts of Wind Country. He wasn't really sure what had compelled him to give that speech, perhaps it was just a need to get things off his chest. He wasn't bitter, not really, yet that speech had made it sound like he cursed his own existence. Naruto sighed and chalked it all up to the usual teenage angst. Granted, his life for the most part sucked, but it wasn't in his nature to be so angsty. It was just one of those, in the moment, things that seemed to happen around him. He adjusted his long crimson scarf as the winds had made it unravel a bit. It was now fluttering behind him along with his trench cloak, flapping in the breeze. It was getting late. By the position of the sun he'd have to guess it was about 6 in the evening. He felt 6 chakra signatures behind him and turned to see Kakashi and the girls walking up. He idly noted each of them had rather solemn looks on their features and felt a pang of guilt. His problems were his own, he hadn't meant to make them feel bad. Had he been paying more attention, he would have realized that they were all listening to him and he wouldn't have said so much. All but Sakura and Ino looked up at him. The two former fangirls had their heads downcast and looked rather depressed. Naruto silently cursed himself, sure he wanted them to realize a few things. He was no fool, not anymore, he knew they were seeking his companionship, and in a way he was very flattered. He wasn't against the idea either, but they needed to realize all the risks involved, but not during a mission of such importance. He needed to nip this in the bud before it got any worse. They could fix things later, but right now he needed his team's head in the game. Jumping down, he landed softly between the girls and placed a hand on each of their shoulders, startling them. Both girls' heads shot up, eyes wide as they looked at the young man they had wronged in the past. A small but true pleasant smile was on his features, his eyes holding no malice or hate, just concern. I am sorry you two heard what I said earlier. But what's in the past, is in the past. I hold no grudges, and by the same light, neither of you should torture yourselves over the foolishness of youth. We all made mistakes back then, I made more than anyone should have been allowed to, but I move on with my life and try to make the best of a bad situation. The two of you should as well. That goes for you too, Kakashi-sensei. Don't let the past haunt you so much that it destroys your present and future. Naruto said in a calm and soothing tone. Most surprising and unpredictable shinobi indeed. How do you do it, Naruto-kun? Temari thought with admiration. Sakura and Ino were a bit stunned. How could he not absolutely despise them? Yet they could see it in his eyes. He held no ill will towards either of them, just concern for their well-being. Both felt pangs in their chests. They didn't deserve such treatment, but neither was willing to shun such kindness either. They made that mistake once already, no way in the 9 hells would they be that stupid again. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Ino said almost shyly, completely out of her usual flirty character. Sakura nodded. We'll do our best to be better friends from now on, I promise. Sakura added. Naruto nodded and gave each a gentle squeeze, both girls secretly enjoying his touch. That is fine, but for now we have a friend in need. We can work on all of this later. I need all of you to have your heads in the game. Despite what you all might think, I'm not some super ninja. I am powerful, but I worked hard to gain what I've gotten, just as all of you have worked hard to earn your own power. Each of you, be proud of what you have accomplished so far. You all have skills that I need to make this mission a success. Now, shall we go save our friend? He asked. Yeah, they all shouted, feeling better after Naruto's pep talk. Naruto flashed his foxy grin, leapt back and turned back into his fox form. Alright then, ladies, Kakashi-sensei, let's go show those Akatsuki Tems why it's a mistake to screw with Konoha and her allies. Naruto boomed. They all nodded and smiled as Naruto got down and let them climb on. Okay, Tamari, which direction do I need to go? Fox Naruto asked. South by southeast. That was the direction Sasori was seen going when Gaara was knocked out. She said. You all know the drill. Hold on tight, we're going to be ripping up dessert. Naruto said and tore off in the direction Tamari instructed him to. Tamari climbed up to Naruto's head and sat down next to his left ear. Thank you for all you've done for us, Naruto-kun, we can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough. Don't sweat it. Gaara is one of my best friends, you and Kankuro are precious people to me, I will always do everything in my power to protect each of you. I know if the situation was reversed, you'd all try to do as much for me. Naruto replied. More than you think. Naruto-kun, more than you think. Tamari said softly. Sakura watched and felt a bit jealous. She knew she'd have to share though, and for the most part that didn't bother her. She just wanted to have a private moment with Naruto too. She had been worried about him ever since she found those blood spatters in the hall at the hospital. She could only hope that nothing was wrong with Naruto. She'd never forgive herself if she never got the chance to tell him how she really felt. What she didn't know was that similar thoughts were going through the other girls' minds at that moment. Naruto had touched the hearts of each one in different ways. It was one of his most powerful gifts, to bring out the best in those he cares for. Though it doesn't always work, like in Sasuke's case, he still managed to help those who needed it. The key was that those he helped, they had to want it. They had to want to change. A tiger doesn't change its stripes unless it wants to. As the desert sands kicked up behind the massive six-tailed fox, each of the team members could only wonder what battle would be in store for them once they found Gaara and his kidnappers. They could only pray that each of them survived the experience.